Hello and welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, a free safe space for people to share and learn from others' experiences with mental health and addictions. I'm Todd Runnebaum, suicide attempt survivor and a recovering substance abuser. It's summertime and life is crazy. There's a lot going on in my life right now, including moving to a new city, and lots of other stuff. So because of that, I'm going to take a little bit of time off, but don't worry, there's still great content, including this episode. Over the next coming weeks, I will be featuring some of my friends' podcasts that I think you should check out, and also some past episodes that maybe you haven't listened to yet, or they didn't get the love they deserved at the time. You know, not everyone's gone through and listened to every episode, so they may not be new to me, but they could be new to you. So please sit back and enjoy past episodes and other great episodes from other great podcasters. I will be returning with all new episodes August 31st, and be prepared, there's going to be some amazing guests with amazing stories. Until then, keep listening and enjoy. This episode originally aired March 5th, 2022. It was entitled Losing Everything to Meth, Including My Child, featuring Daniel Hearn. Please tell my listeners your tale of tribulations and successes.
Okay. Well, I remember, first of all, hello, Tensei. My name is Daniel Hearn, a Métis man from Saskatoon, Treaty 6 territory. Grateful to be here today.
You're Métis?
I am, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm actually just applying for my citizenship right now.
Huh.
God help us if we get it. They got money for business. So, but yeah, I remember before I was like 10, 11 years old, being obsessed with alcohol, and I hadn't tried it. And, I didn't live, there was no active alcoholics in my home. My dad put the plug in the jug well before I came along. I would always bug my dad, like, what does whiskey taste like? What are all these different alcohols they taste like? He'd get mad at me. He's like, why the hell are you asking me all these questions? I was obsessed. I couldn't wait, looking back now, I couldn't wait to get away from myself. I didn't know that at the time, but, when I was 13, I tied one on with my friend in his basement. And I got so loaded, man. I got 3 tall boys and I didn't even finish them and I blacked out. Woke up the next day and I was just covered in piss, and my pants, I wasn't wearing pants. My pants were across the house, across the basement, and they were soaked too. So, and you'd think that would be like, oh man, this sucks. Like, I don't want to do that, but that wasn't the case. Like, I went to school and I bragged about it, I was like amazed. Like, it was so awesome. I got so loaded that I lost control of my bodily functions and I just couldn't wait to do it again, and, it was at that point where my life became all about Friday night. I worked all week, I'm a hustler, and that was my hustle. I just had to make sure that I had enough money and I had to pull someone to get the booze for me. Right.
Yeah.
So, and if I couldn't find that, my weekend was ruined, I would be devastated.
Was that a regular thing right from 13? It was like every weekend after 13 years old?
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm not sure if it worked out every weekend, but I remember being like the obsession took hold right away.
Right.
And then, I think when I turned 15, I found hash oil. There was a lot of oil in Indian Head. That's all you could find was oil, and it became all about that. And I didn't even like getting high on marijuana. Like, didn't make me feel good. The first time was great. And after that, it just gave me anxiety, and it just I'd be shaking and rigid with anxiety, just hating it. But, the couple hours would go by and I'd relax and I'd do it again, because this time's going to be different. Right. I just need to relax. So I'll just smoke more of this weed that makes me so anxious I can't even breathe. And that went on for a long time too. When I was 16, I moved to Saskatoon, and within a couple of months, I had a 1/4 pound of weed under my car seat. I was Weed Man Dan.
You were selling it or just using it that much?
No.
Huh.
I was always a one-hit wonder. Like, even later on, it didn't matter how much weed I smoked. Like, my tolerance never really went up. Like, people used to make fun of me because I'd have one hoot and be just baked. And but no, I was a businessman. You know, I had a 5-liter Mustang later in my teen years. I picked that up and I bought that, like, I paid for that almost exclusively with proceeds of selling weed.
Huh.
Yeah. Actually, that's not entirely true. My grandfather bought the car, but like I turned it into a race car.
Sparky?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, he paid for that car. So, and I paid him back a little bit, but then the payments just sort of stopped and I was sort of lost in the life there and he didn't really say anything. And, but, time went on, I graduated high school barely. I think I graduated with 53 average and, I went welding.
Right.
And, I held down a job.
There's no addiction in the trades, is there?
Oh, well, not that I noticed. But I was so high, I didn't know what was going on around me. So, and then, time marched on and, I turned bar age and I started drinking more. I was already drinking, but, I turned bar age and then, I was in the bar every Friday night, every Saturday night. And then it was every Wednesday night. And, it just, every night of the week is a different night at a different bar. Right. So, yeah. It wasn't until I was about 22 that I started. I think I was 22 when I tried cocaine for the first time. And at
Riley's.
What's that?
At Riley's nightclub?
No, it wasn't. Well, I did. Yes, I did cocaine at Riley's, but I didn't do it the first time at Riley's. Okay. Everybody's done cocaine at Riley's. So, and I could hold down a job. And I could, I could pay the bills. And in 2006, I got my journeyman welding, my Red Seal. And then I went up north and, I did really well. And when I went up north, I didn't get high. It was weird. Like I could just put it down, go to work, not use, eat healthy, go to the gym, like just be awesome. Although I was working out so hard that I could barely keep my eyes open at work. So I guess the addiction just manifested in a different way. But I bought a house.
In Saskatoon?
Yeah, in Saskatoon. Okay. I bought a house. But as soon as I would come back from up north, like the party was on, like the party was always after the bar at Dan's house. So and I ended up losing my job up at the mine in northern Saskatchewan. And it wasn't because I was like, I did get in trouble one time for partying in the camp. But another time I literally fell asleep in the truck. Like I fell asleep in the work truck and my supervisor came along and that was it. So
were you like passed out or were you just sleepy?
No, I was just fell asleep.
Oh.
I worked out like a savage, like a savage. Like I would be completely bagged, and I just pulled up in front of the shop. And then the next thing I know, my supervisor's knocking on the window and they flew a plane in special for me and, sent me home.
Private plane.
Yeah, it was. So there was this one time I had a private plane.
Rock star.
Yeah. Well, at least I thought I was. So, then I went, then I got a job working up in Fort McMurray and, again, I could go up north for 20 days and be sober and do well and come home for 8 and just be a mess.
You work hard, you play hard.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
And, around 2008, I met a woman and, in that same year, there was a massive layoff in Fort McMurray. And one of the things that her and I liked about each other is that we could use together, like, oh, I've never had a partner that I could use with. This is so amazing, like, oh, we can have so much fun together. And we did. Okay, there's this, the saying, my worst day sober is better than my best day drunk. Yeah. Bullshit. Todd, that's bullshit. I had some great times when I was loaded. So...
Better than your worst day sober?
On my worst day sober, I wanted to kill myself. So you tell me. On my best day drunk, I had women, I was partying, it was fun, money, cars, the things. My worst day sober, I was in a sober living house wanting to kill myself.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Well, early recovery.
Well, of course. My life is wonderful now. Let's not be confused. I'm not saying that one's better, like being drunk is better than being sober. It's not. I don't like that saying. It rubs me the wrong way. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah. So, there was a layoff, and I knew in my mind, okay, if I'm not working up north anymore and I'm in Saskatoon full time, I'm fucked. Like I'm screwed, and I knew that in my soul. You know, I didn't let anyone know that outside of me. But I remember coming back and I'm thinking, man, this ain't good. This is bad news. And it was, you know, her and I, we jumped off a cliff together. You know, we were, using, it was, weekends. And then, but it very quickly turned into every day. We were smoking weed every single day. And I was smoking meth at the time, but she didn't know it. So one day I'm like,
how'd you go from that jump from occasional cocaine use and getting drunk and pot to suddenly
it was
jumping?
A very smooth transition, if we're being honest. No, I don't remember exactly how it went down, but yeah, like one night a friend of mine had this stuff at a party, and hey, this is meth, you smoke it, and and I did, and I liked it. So time goes on. You make some friends that do it, and they come around more and more often, and then that's your life.
You like it so much you don't tell your girlfriend.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to quit. But one day, I say to her, I'm like, hey, you want to try this? And she said yes. And that was a great day. But
how romantic.
Yeah, it was very, well, I don't know if romantic would be the right term, but it started us down a very dark path. I joke around about these things, but in all honesty, it just about killed us. So we were doing that, and then I started my own welding company. And I was getting work and having some success. And then I caught wind that her dad was using Oxy for his hip. And, before you know it, we're over at mom and dad's house, and, my partner's like, oh, my back is so sore and Tylenol's not even touching it. And, and now we got a fistful of Oxy. So it wasn't long before he couldn't supply us. He needs them. So we went to the street and we found the shady 80s.
What's that?
Fentanyl.
Oh, shady 80s.
I
haven't heard that term.
Yeah, they're the green 80s.
Oh, okay.
And that was at a time where we didn't know they were fentanyl. They looked like oxys. So we thought we were getting pharmaceutical grade oxy. We weren't worried about overdosing or anything because we're going to get these pills. Even our dealers like, well, we're not making these in a bathtub, So we believed that we were getting legit stuff. Like this was OxyContin, and we did it for a long time. And our habit got so out of control. Like we topped out at like $1,000 a day on fentanyl.
Good
and
Lord.
We certainly weren't coming by that money, honestly.
Right.
So, eventually I found that laying on the couch was more important than going to work.
Right. So you couldn't quite tell the difference between Oxy and fentanyl? Like it was just an opioid and it was gave you the same high?
Oh, it was way better. Because the oxys that we were getting from her father were only 10 milligrams, and the ones we were getting from the street were 80 milligrams.
Right.
So we just assumed that these just there's more in there. That's why we're getting a bigger jolt out of it. So there was a time in there too where I decided that working for the man was I didn't want to do that anymore. So I did some research, and I had money in the bank at the time, and I I went to a glass maker and I bought $8,000 worth of lab equipment.
Oh,
Yeah. I got all dressed up and I said that I'm a formulator or I'm doing these whatever, making cosmetics or whatever. I'm sure he knew I was full of shit because I paid cash and he took it. And then we went and did the same thing to the chemical company. So, despite my best efforts, like I had a giant lab in my garage, but never produced anything that was like illegal, I guess you could say. So, I'm not a chemist. I learned that.
It's an expensive lesson.
Yes, it was. Also very frustrating lesson because I really wanted it to work, Todd. I really wanted it to work. So, and I spent months researching and trying to figure that out. And yeah, it's not as easy as what everybody says it is.
Yeah.
But I should not have survived that because some of the chemical reactions that I stood there and witnessed should have exploded. There was sparks happening. There was volatile chemicals everywhere, and I wasn't even wearing a shirt. I was wearing sandals and shorts. Like it was crazy. So
you weren't like Breaking Bad in the whole chemical suit or nothing.
No. I was just bad. Just normal bad.
Well,
so
maybe that's a good thing.
Well, I would say. But I was so I gave up on that eventually. I had to give up on it. I put all the lab glass in boxes and put it up in the attic and sort of just forgot about it. And I got a job working in town. I was running a welding truck, and then it came to a point where I was losing the business. I was losing the company a lot of business because of my behavior on job sites and on, my appearance. I had big sores on my face and it wasn't a good scene. So eventually, and they had to let me go. Like back then, and even still today, employers really don't know how to handle this. They're and not because they're bad people or even ignorant people all the time. We just simply don't have the resources,
especially smaller businesses. Like,
yeah,
it's one thing working for the government or something. They have a program for you to go to, but if it's, a small business, yeah. Sorry.
No, it's fine. So yeah, they ended up letting me go. And, I turned to dumpster diving. And I thought that, in doing that, like I in my mind, I was starting a recycling company and we were going to be rich,
all those rich hippies recycling stuff.
Yeah. So, but all I was really doing was, like I would go out literally all night long, leave the, I suppose I forgot an important step here.
I was going to ask about your girlfriend. Where she was at the point.
Yeah, no, there was, let's see. There was a point where when we were still using fentanyl, I came home from work one day and she curled up beside me and let me know that she was pregnant. So we had the talk, what are we going to do? But by the grace of God, we decided that we would see it through. And so we tried to stop on our own very briefly, and then we quickly realized that this is very serious and that we need some help. So we went and got on the methadone maintenance program and it worked. We stayed clean.
Was this before you started dumpster diving?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I missed an integral step here.
Right.
And and then when my son was born, it wasn't even 6 months until we were using again. But it wasn't fentanyl. Now it was meth again. So I started pissing dirty because you have to take piss tests when you're on the methadone program. And they kicked me off.
Were you smoking meth or were you injecting at this point?
Smoking.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I never took that step. I never started injecting.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I that's when I was fired. And that's when I started dumpster diving. I thought I could support the family and support the habit through the proceeds of dumpster diving. And all I was doing was making enough money to get the drugs I needed to stay up all night, to get the money I needed to get the drugs to stay up all night. Like, it was just an endless cycle of nothing, you know? So,
and your partner was still using then too?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So she was at home. She stayed home. She took care of the kid, and I went out and did my best to scrape up enough money, you know? So I was never home. I was always out doing that. And if I wasn't diving, I was in the garage pulling copper out of air conditioners or electric motors or whatever, you know? And it got really, really dark. Some really bad people started coming around.
Bunny Hugs and Mental Health is supported by Co-op. I've been a member of my local co-op, Sherwood Co-op, for about 20 years. If you live in Western Canada, especially the prairies, or spent any time here, you've probably fueled up or bought groceries at a co-op. You might even have a co-op number, or 2, or 3. You know if you know. But co-op is not just a gas bar or grocery store. Although co-op is those things too, it's a different kind of business. Co-op members are owners and success is shared with everyone. Your co-op doesn't benefit one person or one corporation. Your co-op was built for everyone. Your co-op was built for your community. Learn more about co-op and find a location near you at co-op.crs. One thing I've learned through my experience with mental health and addictions is you never know what you need to hear until you hear it. Make sure to rate and review on Apple and to tell as many people as you can about the podcast so others can hear something they need to hear from one of my guests. After all, this is a free mental health service, which is a rare thing, so why not share with as many people as you can?
And on, what was it, December 1st, 2016, 2 social workers showed up with 2 police officers, and they took our son. Yeah. They found some paraphernalia. They saw the state of the house. It's trashed. It's filled with garbage, sharp metal, broken. At that point, we were heating the house with broken toaster ovens. You know, like I would smash the glass out of the front of the toaster oven and plug it in, and that's how that area of the house would stay warm.
How old was your son at this point?
3.
3.
2. He was 2. He was apprehended 3 days after his 3rd birthday. Yeah.
When you said kind of shady people were coming around, is that the kind of when you started? I don't know. I can edit this out if you don't want to talk about it, but like gangsters and gang members and stuff. Oh, okay.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And I was never really directly, well, I mean, I got involved with some thefts and stuff like that, but I never really jumped into gang life.
Right.
But yeah.
Actually, one other question before we move on.
Yeah.
Does methadone affect babies when mothers are pregnant?
It can.
Okay.
But for some reason, and maybe it has affected him in some way. We're not really sure. You know, he does have some behavior at times, but
it's not like using crack or something while pregnant.
Well, I don't think so. And he didn't need any maintenance. So like when he was born, he didn't go into withdrawal.
Right. Okay.
You know, so I'm not a doctor, but you know, maybe the methadone didn't make it past the placenta. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
sorry, continue. They came and took him.
Yeah. So they came and, you know, they were laughing when they did it. They thought this was great fun.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. They weren't sympathetic to us at all. We were definitely treated like morally deficient human beings. We were treated like scum. You know, police officers, 2 police officers, big guys, just laughing, looking at the house and making jokes. And meanwhile, taking, you know, our son from us.
Wow.
So,
And this is like the darkest day of your life, and they're having a good chuckle.
Yeah. So I'll never forget that day, because the last thing I ever handed him on his way out the door was puppy, was his little stuffed animal puppy. And I came to realize after that puppy is the only thing that has been completely consistent for him through his whole life. That puppy was there for him when I couldn't be.
Right.
So, and I know your listeners won't see this, but I had him tattooed
on
my arm, just so that I don't, forget. And I don't want to forget, that pain is mine, and it serves a purpose for me.
Yeah.
So, then, the house, it got a little quieter, so to speak, because there was no little guy running around anymore. But
did you still own your house at this point?
Yeah. Well, it was in foreclosure, it was in the final stages of foreclosure. So, 16 days after that, on December 16th, my partner left me for a murderer. There's no, and it got
because
really
he had drugs.
Well, no, because he was going to save her. Yeah, he was going to help her get the kid. He was going to keep her safe. He was going to do all of these things. And she ended up living in some very terrible situations that were extremely life-threatening. She lived on this. I'm not going to tell her story, but
right, yeah.
So it got really quiet. Like they kept coming back, like her and her partner, just loaded, just high, right? And doing terrible things in the house. There was a night that I was held hostage because I don't really know why, to be honest. He just wanted to show off to his new girlfriend, I guess, and she was mad at me, so he held me hostage with an axe to my throat in my own bathroom.
Were you loaded at the time too, or?
Well, yeah. So
fair. Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and then eventually they just stopped coming around, like they stole everything that was worth stealing. And, like the heat was turned off in the house, and it just got real quiet. Even my friends were afraid to come around because of the gang members that were watching my house. I would get phone calls, or I would get text messages at 3:00 in the morning telling me which lights were on in my house, just so that I knew they were watching.
Right.
And then one day I go out for lunch with my mom. She comes and scoops me up, takes me out for lunch, and she starts scheming. She's like, you should go back up north. You should, just find some stability and make some money, and then come back and get a safe place to live, and then work with the ministry and get your son back. And I'm like, mom. She's like, what? I'm like, don't I need to get clean first? And she's like, yes. She pulls out a form. She's got a form all filled out and everything. She sign right here. She slaps it down on the table with authority. She's like, sign that shit. And I did.
Funny you should ask, son.
Yeah, funny you should ask. So I signed it, and 10 days later, I was in Thorpe Recovery Center in Lloydminster. I did 10 days detox there, and then I did 28 days at Pine Lodge, and that's where you and I met again.
Yeah, re-met.
Yeah.
Have you been? I mean, I don't answer if it gives away too much, but have you been sober since?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I lost the desire to use, man. Like, I don't want to get high anymore. Like at the most fundamental part of my soul, like at way down at the bottom, I simply just do not want to get high anymore. But
I went through Pine Lodge. I met a lot of addicts of all types, and I worked there for, we had to fire, I don't know, it was about 2 years. And I mean, there's a lot of people that use meth that relapse. So it's pretty impressive that you were able to, like, once you got clean, stayed clean so far.
Yeah. So far for today, I'm all right.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not because I wanted to and chose not to, it's because I didn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't a challenge for me.
Right.
There was a time though, it was a challenge to not kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't have out of all of the terrible shit that happened to me, I did not have my first suicidal thought till I was 9 months in recovery. You know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that first year's a bitch.
Yeah. Well, and you know, like you think you're having a good time and then all of a sudden everything gets pretty real, you know? And, I'm lucky that I had the support, group that I had at the time. You know, I was involved with some peer support groups, and, I leaned real heavy on them, you know, like I met them twice a day, every day for a year, you know, it just gave me a place to go. I'll never say that they saved my life, because I'm not sure that they did, but they definitely gave me a place to go and practice being a human being, you know, place that I could go where someone would know my name and say, "Hey, Dan, how's it going, man?" You know?
Yeah.
So
you think Pine Lodge saved your life?
I'm not sure, you know, like it's like I said, like the desire to use just left me, you know? Pine Lodge definitely helped me a lot to change the way that I think. You know, and like I said, the groups that I was attending, they helped as well. But I think that I just didn't want to get high anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
was your girlfriend still using when you were about 9 months sober?
So as we go, I got out of treatment and I went back to Saskatoon, and I immediately started engaging the ministry. Like, what do you need? I want to see my son. What do I got to do? And I did it. Whatever they wanted, I did it. I didn't care, man. Like, I wasn't going to fight with them. I was done fighting. You know, they say in step 2, come to believe, you know, come to believe in something bigger. And I'm not sure I believed in something bigger, but I started to believe in something other than me. You know, so
the ministry, they're bigger than you.
Yeah. Well, they kind of were in a way. So, and I got into a sober living house, and I had to do weekly piss tests. I had to do mandatory meetings. I had to do weekly case plannings. And then it started to be supervised access. I'd get like 2 hours supervised access with my son. And then that turned into 4 hours. Then that turned into overnight, then all weekend, then 3 days, then 4 days. And on July 31st, 2017, my son was returned to my care.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
So, and I was a full-time dad for that, a full-time single dad for a year and a half after that.
Let me ask you something. So when you met your girlfriend, she was into smoking weed.
Yeah.
You introduced her to meth and those people, you know.
Yeah.
Did you have problems with guilt with that?
I look back at that and I'm like, man, like that shit, dick move, bro. Like that was a dick move, you know?
Yeah.
But for whatever reason that I don't feel it. Like I don't feel shame or guilt, you know? And I don't try to justify it either, you know, like, oh, we all make our own decisions. And that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. But, I helped facilitate those decisions, you know?
Right.
And, I've owned that, you know, like I've said, like, you know, like I apologize for that. And we don't talk about it anymore.
Right.
You know, like, but, yeah, I don't really know how to explain that, because that is something terrible, and really terrible things happened in her life because she was introduced to those things. Now, don't be confused. This was not the first time that she's done drugs. Like, it's not like she was like, you know, completely innocent. And I'm like, here, put this in your lungs.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Maybe because you were just dabbling in it too, and you were experimenting with it. It wasn't like,
well, I think I was past dabbling at that point.
Oh, okay.
You know, like I was using daily, you know.
Oh, I see.
And like that was when we first met. So we met, like our first date, I was high on meth.
Oh, I see.
know?
Oh, okay.
So, and she didn't know. So, that was weird. But, yeah. So, anyways, I go on for a year and a half, and I, with being a full-time single dad, I graduate from the sober living house I was in. We get an apartment, I get a job. And oh, hang on.
Oh, you're nodding out.
Yeah, I'm on the nod. Yeah, recall. And life goes on, like he goes into preschool, and I'm working, and we have our own place, and I'm doing my best, and I'm not doing perfect. I definitely wasn't a perfect father, and I'm still not to this very day. I will not ever try to tell anybody that I'm a perfect father. I yell more than I should, but I make sure that I make it right.
Right. Yeah.
So such is life. And then about a year and a half after this all happens, like after I get him back and I'm living in recovery and doing all the things, his papa comes to the house one day. So it's her dad comes to the house and sits down, and he's like, Donna's back, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I've heard this before. She's come back, and she's just on one, and, like me just being my judgmental self. And he's like, no, this is different. She's clean. So, in that moment, I was like, fuck. Because like I didn't want her to come back. I was so angry. Like I was so mad. Like, oh my God, Todd, I don't even know how to explain to you accurately how angry I was. I remember sitting in these groups that I was in and just yelling and talking about murdering her and how good it would feel to have blood on. Like it was just, I was so mad. Like putting down the dope was easy compared to dealing with the resentment that was in my heart. And you'd think that I'd be like, oh, right on, like, oh, like my son's going to have his mother back and all these things. No, that was not it. It was the opposite of that. I did not want her to come back. So I had to make peace with that because it was true. She was clean. She was pregnant, and she had been for a short time, I think a few months. So there was some commitment there. And, I tried my best to accommodate her and give her, some access to him and slowly work our way into, like some custody agreement or something. But we couldn't see eye to eye. And it started to come to light with a few people around me that she was acting as though maybe she was using. And then she was like, no, I'm not. And I'm not taking drug tests. So that started a vicious court battle. That was the hardest time of my life. And I've been through some heavy shit. Family court was the worst experience of my life.
Just emotionally, or like,
yes,
because of what she, like, why was that more emotional than having your child taken away in the first place?
Because I was powerless. Because what I felt in my heart wasn't becoming a reality.
Right.
And in my mind, who doesn't take drug tests? Like if I'm in recovery and someone says to me, I think you're high, I'll be like, give me that goddamn cup right now.
Yeah.
Like I can't wait to piss in that cup. Give me that coffee cup. Like I'm, like that's how I was. But, she felt differently, and her lawyer advised her not to take them. And she listened.
What the hell?
So, yeah.
Was she using?
No, she wasn't. Because we went to court and the judge was like, I think taking piss tests for both of you is a great idea. So, yeah. And I'm like, well, thank you. Because that's what I wanted this whole time, was just take the drug test. Give me something tangible that I can see that says negative on there. Just give that to me, please.
Yeah.
So I can have that in my heart.
Yeah. You're going to piss anyway.
Yeah. Like I had to take piss tests for a year. Every week for a year, I had to take piss tests to meet the ministry's requirements. So, and then I had to, go to court for this. And, but anyways, eventually, like this went on for like freaking year and a half, 2 years, just dragged out, terrible. eventually the judgment came down and we got 50-50. And we both spent a pile of money on lawyers. And we have since made peace. We're friends now. You know?
Really?
We are. We co-parent well. And we have supper every Friday night on transition day. You know, like when he comes to me or when he goes to her, we have dinner. We gather and just converse and
wow.
You know, we're just a family for a few hours once a week.
So you think it must have been just as hard for her going through all that court and stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was terrible for her. But yeah,
that's good. Yeah, I mean, you both grew out of that, and so that's pretty powerful, actually. You know.
Yeah. So, and I'll tell you, 50-50 parenting is I kind of like it. I'm not gonna lie. I love my son. I love him. I love him more than anything else on this planet. You know,
half the time.
Yeah, but only 50% of the time. So, but no, I kid. So once the waves settle, I end up. Well, COVID struck. And, things got pretty dark for me for a little while there too. Cause when COVID struck, my son was at his mom's house and we're like, okay, well, we don't know what's happening. Maybe he should just stay with you. And so there was a month there where I was alone and, like segregated from everything. So, I did go and see some people, but, just because but it got really dark there for me.
Yeah.
And that was another dark point in my life. But I hung on. I didn't listen to the thoughts. I didn't listen to them as much as I could have.
Right.
And in the fall of last year, 2 years ago. Yeah. I decided that I was going to go into safety. So I started a safety program at Polytech, and I was doing really well. I was scared to go to school. I thought I was like, my brain's cooked. I'm not going to be able to learn. I don't know why I'm doing this. And turns out I did really well. I think I graduated with distinct honors, or with great distinction. So, but halfway through that course, I just got this idea in my head, and I don't know where it came from. Like, I don't know where it came from. I'm like, I should start a podcast. And I put it on Facebook, and a couple of people are like, yeah, I'll come on. So I did. I started on February 6th of last year. So yesterday, what's the date today? 2 days ago was my 1 year anniversary of my show.
We started almost exactly the same time.
Yeah, I remember.
I didn't release mine until April, but I started recording some in February.
Yeah, I remember you reached out to me and we were having a conversation about that.
Yeah. But it's so weird that we, at the same time, that we kind of had the same. COVID, you come up with ideas and you're like, man, what the hell, eh?
Yeah. Well, and that's the point where I realized that I didn't need these peer support groups as much as I thought I did, or was led to believe that I did. What I needed in my life was fulfillment. And that is what's given me the life that I have today, is that search for and finding fulfillment.
Right. Yeah. It's so true.
Yeah. So, I found something that I loved and I chased it with reckless abandon. There was no alternative for me. That drug seeking behavior came back full tilt. It was just pointed in a different direction this time. You give an addict purpose and you stand the fuck back.
Yeah. Well, then it's also a bit, by doing the podcast for me too, it feels a little bit like the 12th step. It feels like I'm
absolutely
giving back a little bit, or giving back. I don't know. Maybe that's not what I'm thinking of, but like
carry the message.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So I finished my safety program, And then I decided that I wanted to get into Indigenous social work. My idea was that I was going to bring social work into the workplace, like in a meaningful way, right? Because it's not something that you normally see or hear about. And I got through my first semester at First Nations University, and I was just starting my second semester, and I woke up one day and I came and I sat in the studio and I looked at my analytics, and I looked at my supporters, like the organizations that have come to support me. And I looked at my business account, and I decided, I said, you know what, I'm gonna drop out of school. I'm gonna chase this full time. So on January 13th of this year, that's what I did. I called First Nation University. I said, I thank you for the time that I've spent here with you. But I think I'm going to go on a different path. And they said, best of luck, my friend. And I think that pretty much brings us till today.
I thought you put on Facebook earlier that you were going to leave school, or you just finished maybe the semester or something.
Yeah. I think maybe that might've been it, but no, I didn't. Right. I didn't announce it until January 13th is when I announced it on Facebook, and I called FNU.
Oh, well, it's been a long January.
It has. Yeah. It's actually February now. So
right. Yeah. Finally.
Yeah. It's awesome. January 38th.
Yeah. The podcast is Hard Knocks Talks.
Correct.
And it's a live video.
Yeah, it's
do you have audio too?
Yes, I do. It's technically not a podcast. The podcast is an audio thing. It's a live streaming talk show.
Live stream.
But
okay.
Most people call it a podcast. I even call it a podcast just because everybody knows what that means, right? So
right.
Yeah.
And it's solely based on recovery and addictions and
yeah, well, it's not solely based on recovery. It's solely based on substance use and
gotcha.
the social justice around substance use.
Right.
We do hear lots of lived experience stories of healing and of recovery and of things like that. But we also talk a lot about harm reduction. We talk about alternative therapies. We've had people on that are still actively using and have no intention of quitting, and are advocating so that they don't have to quit. They can just live their life how they choose, and who are we to judge? They're not causing anybody any harm. I don't agree or disagree. I don't, with any of that.
Social users, or they're like hardcore addicts?
Well, hard to say. I didn't really ask them, but some people say, yeah, I'm still actively using, and this is what I believe in, and this is what I'd like to see, and this is why, and then I let my viewers draw their own conclusions, right? Like, I'm not a biased, I do my best not to be a biased platform.
Right.
This is what's happening in our world. Here's the information, and do with it what you will. Draw your own conclusions and live your best life.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. I try to do the same with this show too. I don't judge anyone. It's just give them a platform, and we'll let you decide. Yeah. And for me, whatever works for you works for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I advocate for harm reduction. Absolutely, I do. But I also advocate for abstinence-based treatments and stuff like that, because this is a spectrum. If you want to talk about harm reduction, abstinence is an excellent harm reduction strategy.
Yeah.
So it's a spectrum, and to advocate for one and not the other.
Well, you're on methadone too, which is harm reduction.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
How long were you on methadone? Like, they kicked you off once you failed?
They did, yeah. I think I was close to 2 years.
Oh, okay. But then you never went back on once you failed?
No, I successfully weaned off methadone onto crystal meth. So if you ever want to get off methadone, don't do it like I did it.
So you start with methadone and work your way up.
Yeah. And I assure you, it was against the doctor's orders.
I don't know if you saw the comment on your podcast the other day. There was a comment there saying this is better than going to an NA meeting.
Oh yeah.
I was like, damn.
Yeah.
No pressure,
I didn't know.
Dan.
Like, oh, there's going to be some blue flamers mad at you now.
Maybe try a different meeting, maybe.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, yeah. Okay, do that, but also still come.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.